Robert Glazer, founder, chairman of the board, Acceleration Partners, which helps leading brands grow their affiliate marketing partnerships with strategic support and local resources. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm great. I'm great. It's been a while since we chatted. It's so nice to see you and hear your thoughts. You've got so much going on right now and so much powerful stuff. You're the host and creator of the Elevate podcast, the author of the Friday Forward newsletter, where you boast a ridiculous number of loyal subscribers, and those numbers are growing like crazy all the time. It's amazing. And the topics are so great. In fact, we reach out to you frequently and ask you to write features for us on the Social Capital Insider based on them. Because so often you write about how to listen and reach out to employees and customers in powerful and very empowering ways. And that's how you run your business and so much of how you think. So first of all, thank you so much for those thoughts that you share, for doing business the way you do, and for being here. We really appreciate it.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm happy to support the work that you guys are doing. I think it's really important as people try to build organizations that focus on their people as much as their product and service.
And I want to start off with something really powerful that you said. We had a feature that we ran a few weeks back or last month on and the idea of empathy. And this idea is so powerful in business, when we really put it into place. And we talk about empathy all the time in our day-to-day lives, but we don't necessarily talk about it when it comes to business. And you had a really powerful, some very powerful things that you shared with our readers. And I just want to share a little bit of what you said and have you talk about that to start off. You said, to this extent, to lead effectively, it's important to really understand the people you are leading, their strengths, weaknesses, motivations, and challenges. This is why I always made it a priority to get to know the people I lead on a deeper level, including understanding their history and backstory, and especially their why. Additionally, by getting to know team members' individual strengths and areas for growth, I found it easier to respond and support in ways that would resonate most. This offers the opportunity to provide meaningful feedback, offer appropriate challenges, and recognize achievements in a way that resonates most with them. I mean, those are such powerful thoughts, but it takes a lot of time to do that, doesn't it? I mean, that's not to get to that deep level of understanding people. It takes a lot of effort, right?
Yeah, and look, we were always in the people business, right? There were no widgets or factories or manufacturing. And so when I joked, I just wanted some product to break in my business because every time there was some problem, like inherently, it's with a partner, it's with a client, it's with an employee or otherwise. So I think, just understanding that that's the business that we're in, makes that even more relevant. But I think, look, if it's going to be about, enjoying the journey and the work you're doing, I think, everyone's different. Everyone has different stuff that makes them tick. And I think, understanding the people and where they come from and what their stories are. That's why I'm a big fan of, we pioneered a lot about remote work, but what I hated during COVID was we lost our offsites, in our team meetings. Because even for a remote organization, to me, those were terrible virtual. And it's that, glass of wine or sitting around at 10 o'clock or telling a story or learning something about someone that explains a lot, when they're willing to be vulnerable and open up, that, just gives you a new perspective on, you might find out your, super aggressive salesperson, who seems over focused on the commission, grew up in abject poverty, and they're in the back of their mind, they're just afraid about ever going back there, and not having enough. And so I think when you're particularly when you're trying to resolve conflicts and communications, like that stuff is there. And I found that particularly around the why stuff that the more I understand someone, the more I understand their kind of what drives them and their backstories. Like it does help resolve things and solve some things, and particularly interpersonal things. You're like, look, I know why Chris and Stephanie are having this, you know, argument, and why like they have real meaningful experiences on either side of the spectrum, and they're both really entrenched about it. And actually, if they understood that more, then maybe that whatever they're arguing about is not about what they're arguing about. Like I just found this to be true uh over and over the years.
And that connects to some other powerful tools and ideas that you've talked about before and shared with me before. You don't try to force people into positions. You try to find the best position for those people and the best situation for those people. And we've even talked about if it's not in your company,
Yeah.
you'll help them get a job somewhere else. I mean, that kind of connection to your people is like I said, it takes a lot of effort, but I'm imagining that you've found over the years that effort is very worthwhile in the long run, correct?
Yeah, look, we have relationships that extend beyond our business. We have a wonderful group of alumni that's in the world. I was having a discussion this morning about, someone at another company asked me if I knew someone, and actually, it's probably the time for someone at our organization to take on a new role, and I think they'd be a good fit for it. And people are always think it's weird when I often like, what's wrong with them? Like, there's nothing wrong with them, but like, they're looking for something new. We don't have it. Like, so this is where again I think the word empathy has some misperception out there. Like it's not about feeling bad or always talking about like it's just having some understanding and connection. And I think the key, I think leaders that go too far on look, you need both, right? You need the performance, and we're in this business and the objectives, but you also need the relationship, and those allow you to have nuanced conversations. One being that, like, Chris, like, love you, like, you're awesome, whatever, but like, you're just not doing well in the sales role. We've tried it over and over again and it's not working, and we're way behind plan. And what are we going to do here? Like, what do you want to do? Like, let's have an honest discussion around that. And we can achieve better outcomes. Unfortunately, a lot of times when someone's not performing in a role or otherwise, people distance themselves from the person because that makes it easier to do like a bad thing. If I could commission a psychological study on this, I'm pretty convinced people pull away from the relationship rather than lean into it. And again, you can hold those two truths. Like, Chris, we can't have you below 50% of plan for 4 quarters in a row. Like, it's just not going to work. And like, but I like you and respect you, and I want you to do well. So like, let's talk about what the options here are.
I love that distinction between the idea of empathy just about being nice, as opposed to being effective and being helpful and
Yeah,
being
it's really
understanding.
not. It's not kind to just be nice to someone and let them struggle and fail and tell them it's going to be okay. And by the way,
Yes.
that's not fair to your organization. That's not fair to your other employees. One of the things that employees don't like to hear, but it's just true. Like, there are decisions that are in the best interest of the team and the company and otherwise that may not be in the best interest of one person. But that is about, like, if you think about sports and stuff like that, like, you
Yeah.
don't let the
Yeah.
team fail because you really don't want to embarrass the starting point guard and take them out of the game. It's just not fair to everyone else.
And in the long run, it's actually not fair to that person. It's not nice to that person either, because I mean
Yeah,
they're gonna keep doing a job they're not good at. You leave the guy that's not performing on the court in the game, and
right,
now everybody's mad at him, because he
right.
didn't perform and he didn't do the job he needed
it,
to
it- it's
do.
just not fair in the longer term. It's just we
Yeah.
tend to trade short-term pain for longer-term pain. And my experience is the longer-term pain is always worse. You can just kind of put it off. And so I've actually never liked the sort of terminology around we're a family. Like, because actually to me, a family is like, oh, we excuse the drunk uncle who's making inappropriate comments at the wedding, like and things like, because to me that's always like we're family, so we excuse everything. Like I think a high performing team is the right analogy, right? Teams have
Hmm.
trust, teams have
Yeah.
chemistry, and you should expect as a player that if you are playing horribly, like the coach is going to bring you out of the game because it's affecting the whole team.
And that connects to something else that you've written about for us as well that I think is very powerful. The idea that not everybody should be promoted, and this was an article that got a lot of reads for us. And I mean it's uh, it's not the kind of thing that the people write about when they're trying to be nice all the time, but it's real, right? I mean, not everybody should be in that corner office role, and not everybody wants to be in that role
Yeah.
either. It's not good for the company, and it's not good for them either, right?
So, some of the greatest mistakes in the history of most businesses are promoting the great salesperson to sales manager and the brilliant engineer to engineering manager and the great tactical marketing person to marketing manager, right? Because they believe that that is the only path forward, and a lot of people don't want to lead and they don't like it, and honestly they want, when you go into leading, you need to switch your reward center, that's your kind of pleasure center, reward center I was talking about, like what you feel good about, from what you accomplished to your team's accomplishments, right? And for it's a transition for everyone, but it's like, hey, it's not about what I did this quarter, it's about how well my team did, and my performance is a reflection of my team. And some, that's a hard transition for most people. Some people just don't want to do it. They want to sell more and get more commission. They want to build an awesome product and have the credit. They want to go do some awesome marketing stuff, and they're not really motivated by uh, building a team and making that team better and giving the team success. And that's okay, because you need that stuff, but you should figure out ways to pay them more and give them more responsibility without having them manage a team and do a terrible job doing that, because one bad leader can destroy the whole team.
And do you have conversations with your people, before you give a promotion or whatnot, and just broach that subject, and just say, do you want to do this? Is this, how do you get to that? Because obviously, there's pressure to just take a promotion no matter what, right? Because
Yeah.
nobody wants to be the guy turning that down. How do you deal with that?
One of the things, I'm not involved in day-to-day operations anymore, but the thing that I think we still do and we've always done is try to expose people to management training and some of the things and the expectations before they become a manager, so they can see what it looks like, what's expected of them, and is this something that they want to do. Also, a lot of people might not know it until they do it, so you got to kind of give them a ripcord to say, like, hey, it's okay to pull out of this, right, if it's not what you want to do. And then I think the third thing, and so many companies like make this mistake, I've just talked to them over and over again, is that they when someone becomes a manager, look, people respond to incentives, right? I love Charlie Mungo, show me the incentive and I'll tell you the behavior. And so when they switch to a manager or leader, you need to evaluate them for their managerial or leadership capabilities and their team's performance, not their individual performance. If you just judge the leader by their individual performance, you are missing most of the job that they're going to do. So I think if you do that properly too, it kind of shines a light on, like, is this person doing what they need to do, right? I think the example I gave somewhere, and it may have been one of the articles, was like, if the sales team has a quota of $1 million and they have 4 reps at 450 each and they hit 1 million, and you'd say, awesome, Chris, great. You did a good job. You got the performance. Well, but if I pick up the hood, I got one woman at 800K of the quota of the 4 who hasn't been promoted. I got the other 3 doing 200 who haven't dealt with their performance issues, right? That's actually bad leadership. And the sales manager jumping in and doing a bunch of the sales for them. That's terrible leadership. Like, the fact that we got to 1 million is irrelevant, because I could eliminate the other 3 reps and promote the person at 800K, and I'd be doing just as well. So you got to be really careful just looking at the numbers and not figuring out, is this person doing the leading, managing, and accountability that they're supposed to be doing.
That's a great thought. Many great thoughts. You're so connected to your people. You're so connected to these just very down to earth ideas of working together. And what I love every time I read read your columns and read your thoughts is that I mean, it's so commonsensical, and we think just taking care of people and working with people as people does make sense. I mean, why do we go into this completely compartmentalist business mode when we get to work? Yeah.
Yeah.
And separate ourselves from our humanity and our common sense. It does, it doesn't make sense. But it seems like some people just are more prone to being able to think like you do, and I'm always curious about what makes people tick, obviously, as a journalist, but what inspires them or inspired them to think this way. And you've always been this way from everything that I've seen. But was there something in your upbringing or in your growth in business or whatever that kind of made you think this way or made you be more down to earth or more connected to people, in your opinion?
Yeah, I think there were sort of some values and experiences, but I think the biggest thing was realizing that like I really wanted to enjoy the journey as much as the destination. And if you're just overly focused on the destination, then it could be like whatever it means and whatever's necessary and a lot of collateral damage along the way. And I wanted to enjoy the work and the people that I was working with. And not everything would always work out, but I think it was that conscious decision of just not to focus on, that the ends would justify all the means.
And talking about that journey, obviously now, you hired a CEO a few years ago now. I think it's a couple of years
Yeah.
now, and you're still actively involved in the company and whatnot. You wrote another great piece, for us about how to find that time and that right time to let somebody else lead. We talk a lot about how do you keep the ideas and the agenda of social capital, of people centric leadership going when you step away from the day to day. And it sounds like that's been something you've been able to accomplish. Share a little bit with our readers and our viewers. How do you keep it going in that same vein, in that people centric vein, in that people centric approach when you step back a little bit?
Yeah, well, you got to build the culture and you got to build the values. And so, what leaders should be doing is building the next generation of leaders. I mean, I've been using this line for a while and it's just changed. I kept saying, we have an election coming up that 90% of the country doesn't want because we had two leaders that just wouldn't let go, and Biden did. I don't think he wanted to. I think he was forced to. So let's not give him too much credit around that. But at that point, like that's like the old man in the business who's still bossing the son, but they're, the daughter who's running the business. Like your job is to build a bench, and your job, if you stand back and say, I did a great job as a leader, it's because the values are transmitted, the behaviors and things are there without you, having to do it. You haven't made it above yourself. There's a graph I show in a lot of my speaking, like which is the better organization? Leader comes in, leader leaves, falls off, right? Or leader comes in, leader leaves, and it goes up. Well, a lot of people are inclined to say, oh, where it falls off, clearly they were the better leader. But the answer is no. Like, we're actually kept going after they left because if leading is about, I think there's no success without succession, and whether it's a family business or an organization, like you should be thinking about, or I mean, sports teams are very good at this, right? You're thinking about the next people and developing the rookie class, and they're going to kind of, at least in sports that physically people are going to age out. I think there's a bigger question of cognitively of when people age out, but to me that's just part of the job, and you should take great pride in helping to build the next group of leaders in your organization.
How hard was that, or how easy was it, and why, to find somebody that could step in and do what you do the way you did it?
Well, I don't think he does it the way I did it, and again, I think if everyone was looking for that, that would really be hard. I think we've helped build the organization and create the values, and was a big part of creating that. But look, I was really lucky in that I had an internal successor, which there's two risks to every time that someone comes into your organization. There's the can they do the job or otherwise, and then they are fit for the culture risk. When you take a shot on someone internally, at least you've mitigated kind of one of those risks. And so I
Yeah.
think it can be really hard to try to take a shot on that from the outside, because if you get it wrong, go back. So I think it's good that's why it's good to have talent on the bench, and good to have people who, are there, who potentially, want that job one day. Although, ironically, in talking to some coaches up these days, no one wants to lead anymore. It's, they see what a lot of these jobs have become, in terms of the 24/7 nature, and having to not only deal with the company and the culture and the product, but how do we feel about every issue going on in the world? And uh, I think there's a shrinking class of people excited to step up and lead, which is going to be a problem, because I think we're going to see a lot of shorter durations.
That's actually fascinating and great fodder for another article we might have you write at some point. Um, but it's to your credit that you developed those. You're developing people at your company that you can then pick from, and they already have that culture embedded in them and whatnot. And that sounds like a great way forward for a lot of other leaders, and to find their future leaders as well. Hey, I could talk to you for hours about all these things. You have so many great ideas and so many great thoughts. But I want you to just take a moment as we wrap up here to let everybody know, is there anything that you want to let people know about what's coming up or what you're doing and what's coming next for either you or your company?
Yeah, so I'm working on a few different books. That's what I've been spending a lot of my summer on. So I've actually rewritten the Moving On book, which was the basis of my TED Talk that you were talking about before, on how do we change how people leave organizations. So I'll be releasing that this fall, and I'm going to experiment with putting some of that on Substack, where people can read it for free. And then I'm also working on a book on talk a lot about helping employees figure out their personal core values and what that unlocks for them as a leader. So I've actually written more of a parable Lencioni style book on a character who sort of goes through this awakening in their personal life and professional life and in their community, and then sort of tells you what you heard. So that's been a challenge for me, but that should be out next year.
Oh my God, I love that. I cannot wait to see that and read that, and I'm sure our viewers and readers will love it as well. So we're going to have to do as much as we can to promote that and work with you on that as well. So, hey, thank you so much for again doing what you do and taking the time to share it here today.
Chris, thanks for having me.